What if I told you that Christmas morning in the 1950s, America felt completely different from anything we know today? Imagine waking up on Christmas morning in the 1950s. No iPhones buzzing on the nightstand. No Amazon boxes stacked by the door. No endless stream of notifications demanding your attention. It is just the soft glow of morning light slipping past the curtains, the faint smell of pine from the living room, and that one toy you have been dreaming about for months, waiting downstairs under the tree. Before you even open your eyes, you can feel it in the air. Today is different. Today is Christmas. You lie there for a moment, listening. The house has its own holiday soundtrack. Somewhere in the kitchen, you can hear the quiet clink of dishes and the low murmur of your parents' voices. A radio plays softly in the background, a warm crooner singing about a white Christmas. The sound slightly fuzzy, like it is wrapped in a blanket. The furnace kicks on with a familiar rumble, and the floorboards creak as someone moves down the hall. It is still early, but your whole body is buzzing with anticipation. In the 1950s, Christmas did not arrive in a rush of next-day shipping and last-minute online orders. It unfolded slowly, like a story told over weeks. It began with the first chill in the air, and someone in the neighborhood strung a single strand of colored bulbs across the porch. Stores downtown dressed their windows in fake snow and cardboard Santas, and suddenly every kid, pressing a nose to the glass, started making mental lists. Catalogs arrived in the mail. Thick, heavy books from Sears, Montgomery Ward, and JCPenney, and children spent hours circling toys in red pencil, as if that small circle could somehow pull a doll or train across the country and place it beneath their tree. By the time Christmas Eve arrived, the house itself had been quietly transformed. The living room was anchored by a real tree, tall enough that the very top bent a little against the ceiling. It carried the deep, sharp scent of pine, the kind that clung to your sweater and hair. Glass ornaments, fragile and shimmering, caught the light in 100 different ways. Spheres of red and green, elongated icicles, silver reflectors with painted stars. Tinsel hung in thin, sparkling strands that your mother insisted you place carefully, one by one, rather than throwing it in clumps the way you wanted. A simple string of large, colorful bulbs wrapped around the tree, each one glowing just a little too hot to touch. Around the room, every surface offered another small sign that this was no ordinary day. A paper chain made from colored construction paper draped across the mantel. Christmas cards from friends and relatives stood in careful rows, each card a tiny piece of art. Snowy churches, children on sleds, chubby Santas with rosy cheeks and twinkling eyes. Above the fireplace, stockings hung empty but expectant, their shapes familiar, almost like members of the family themselves. On an end table, a ceramic nativity scene stood quietly. Mary, Joseph, and the baby, figures worn smooth from years of being carefully unwrapped and arranged. In the kitchen, the real magic of Christmas Eve was already in progress. Your mother had been preparing for days, maybe weeks, grocery lists written in neat cursive, recipes passed down from her own mother. A turkey or ham waited in the oven, slowly filling the house with a savory warmth that made your stomach growl every time you walked past. On the counter sat neat rows of cookie tins, the lids ajar, and the contents slowly disappearing as curious helpers passed by. Sugar cookies shaped like stars and bells, carefully frosted and sprinkled, gingerbread men with raisin eyes, fudge, rich and sweet, cut into small squares, as if anyone ever took only one. The radio or the family's black and white television kept watch from a corner, offering carols, variety shows, or a holiday special that the whole family had been waiting to see. These were not programs you could pause or re-watch later. If you wanted to see it, you sat down when it aired, together or you missed it. There was something sacred in that shared schedule. Families gathered on the couch, children cross-legged on the carpet, eyes bright as they watched singers in tuxedos and gowns perform in front of cardboard snowflakes and painted fireplaces. Laughter and applause drifted from the tiny screen, and for that 1 hour, the whole living room felt connected to something larger and festive. As night settled in on Christmas Eve, the pace of the day shifted. The rush of preparation, wrapping gifts behind closed doors, basting the turkey, checking the list one last time, gave way to softer rituals. Maybe there was a simple church service, candles flickering in the dark, hymns filling a drafty pretty building with warmth stronger than any furnace. Maybe there was a drive through nearby neighborhoods to admire other families' decorations, kids squinting through frosty windows at glowing Santas on rooftops and nativity scenes in front yards. Back home, pajamas replaced Sunday clothes and slippers whispered against the floors. Before bed, another deeply held tradition waited, leaving something for Santa. A plate of cookies carefully arranged, sometimes with a small glass of milk, sometimes with a note written in blocky, earnest handwriting. Dear Santa, thank you for coming. Please say hello to the reindeer. Parents pretended not to watch too closely, not to smile too wide. But for them, this small act of faith, a child setting out cookies for someone they had never seen and never doubted, was the quiet heart of the season. With the living room lights dimmed and only the tree left glowing, the house felt almost holy, wrapped in colored light and anticipation. Eventually, it was time for bed. Teeth were brushed, stockings double-checked, and children were tucked under warm blankets. The rule in many homes was firm. No one goes downstairs until mom and dad are awake. It was a rule honored in spirit, if not always in perfect obedience. So you told yourself you would sleep, but the night stretched out long and bright behind your eyelids. You replayed the pages of the catalog in your mind, imagined the shape of the packages under the tree, and whispered to siblings in the dark. Outside the window the world was silent, occasionally interrupted by the distant crunch of tires on snow or the chiming of a far-off clock tower marking the hours. Sometime in the deep middle of the night, while children finally surrendered to sleep, the second shift of Christmas Eve went to work. Parents, already exhausted from days of preparation, moved quietly through the house, like stagehands setting up the final act of a play. Bicycles were assembled and rolled into position, ribbons straightened, stuffed animals arranged so they seemed to be waiting expectantly. Stockings were filled with small treasures, oranges, nuts, candy canes, tiny wrapped surprises that made the simple act of reaching inside feel like exploration. Wrapping paper crinkled softly, tape dispensers clicked. Now and then a hushed voice broke the silence. Do you think they'll like it? I hope this is enough. The tree, already beautiful, became extraordinary. And then, almost before anyone was ready, the night tipped into morning. In the gray half-light, you woke up with the sudden realization. It's Christmas! No alarm clock, no notification, just that electric feeling running through your whole body. Your feet hit the cold floor, and you shuffle down the hallway, careful not to make too much noise, knowing that the rules are still in place. Maybe you meet your siblings' eyes in the dimness, all of you grinning, whispering, "Do you think he came? Did you hear anything on the roof?" The living room waits at the bottom of the stairs like a secret you are not quite allowed to open. You might sneak a peek from the doorway, just enough to see that something is different. Shadows of new shapes near the tree. Stockings that seem heavier, pulled down slightly by their mysterious contents. But you stop there, because this is another unspoken rule. The first real look at Christmas morning happens together. So you bounce on your toes, tug on your parents' door, call out their names in increasingly urgent whispers that quickly become pleas. And then, at last, the moment arrives. Your parents, perhaps more tired than they let on, shuffle down the hall in their robes and slippers, squinting into the light but smiling anyway. Whether the family is large or small, whether the house is quiet or full of cousins and guests, you enter the living room as a group. There is a shared inhale, a kind of collective gasp as everyone takes in the sight. The tree glowing in the early morning dimness, presents gathered around its base like bright, crinkled snowdrifts, stockings bulging, ribbons catching the light. For a child in the 1950s, that scene was the culmination of months of build-up. But unlike today, where a mountain of gifts might spill across the room, there often was one big present, the thing you had wanted so badly that it occupied your thoughts for weeks. Maybe it was a shining red bicycle, the paint so bright it felt almost unreal. Maybe it was a train, set running in a small oval around the tree stand, the engine already puffing along the track. Maybe it was a baby doll with eyes that closed when you laid her down, or a set of plastic cowboys and horses ready to populate the dusty west of your imagination. The unwrapping began not as a wild flurry, but as a kind of ceremony. Paper was saved and smoothed out in some homes, or at least torn more carefully, because it might be reused next year. Children held up each gift for parents and grandparents to see, turning it this way and that, basking not only in the object itself, but in the approving smiles and exclamations around them. There were practical gifts mixed in too. New socks, a sweater your mother had knitted in secret, a pair of sturdy shoes. These were not always met with immediate excitement, but they were part of the unspoken contract of the holiday. Christmas was both magic and care. After the first rush of discovery, Christmas morning settled into a comfortable, joyful rhythm. Toys were tested immediately on the living room floor. Trains circled past the same spot again and again. Dolls were introduced to siblings and grandparents as if they were new family members. Board games were opened and pieces counted, with someone reading the rules aloud, while others tried to sneak an early move. The television might flicker on to show a holiday parade or a special broadcast, but it was not the center of attention. It was just another layer of the day's soundscape. In the kitchen, breakfast or brunch took shape. Maybe there were cinnamon rolls so sticky you needed extra napkins, or pancakes sizzling on a griddle, or a simple meal of eggs and toast shared at a table that suddenly felt like the safest, coziest place in the world. Adults moved in and out of the living room, balancing coffee cups and plates, occasionally kneeling to help assemble something complicated, occasionally leaning back against the doorway just to watch the scene unfold. Later in the day came the second act, the holiday meal. Whether grand and elaborate or modest and simple, it was treated with the same reverence. A white tablecloth was spread, sometimes the same one used every year, corners slightly frayed but cherished. The good dishes came out of cabinets, along with heavy silverware that had to be polished beforehand. Centerpieces were often homemade, a bowl of shiny ornaments, a few sprigs of evergreen, maybe a single red candle flickering in the middle of it all. The meal itself was a labor of love. Turkey or ham, mashed potatoes, gravy, vegetables, pies cooling on the counter. People took pictures, their flashbulbs popping, freezing these moments on tiny squares of film that would be tucked into photo albums later. As the afternoon faded into evening, Christmas Day in the 1950s often slowed down in a way that feels almost foreign now. With stores closed and few outside distractions, there was nowhere urgent to be. Families played games around the dining table, not just for a quick laugh, but for hours. A record player spun familiar carols or big band tunes, the music crackling in that warm, imperfect way only vinyl can. Kids lay on the floor, reading new books or lining up toy soldiers in careful rows. Grandparents told stories about their own childhood holidays, about winters that felt colder and presents that were simpler, but memories that were no less bright. And then, as night fell once more, the house found a new kind of quiet. The tree still glowed, but some of the wrapping paper had been tidied away. Some toys carried to bedrooms, some dishes washed and stacked to dry. Children, finally worn out, fell asleep clutching new treasures, the day's excitement settling into the soft hum of memory. Outside, stars pierced the cold winter sky. Inside, the rhythm of the house, breathing, settling, resting, returned to normal, but with a gentle afterglow that would linger for days. Looking back on a 1950s Christmas from today's world, it is easy to see what has changed. Today, holidays arrive in a torrent of targeted ads, flash sales, express shipping, and digital wish lists. There can be more of everything. More gifts, more noise, more screens, more pressure. But when people talk about the holidays they remember most clearly, especially those from mid-century America, they rarely mention how many presents they received. They talk about the anticipation, about the smell of the tree, about a favorite ornament carefully hung in the same spot every year, about lying on the living room floor, watching colored lights dance across the ceiling, about the sound of their parents' voices in the kitchen, and the feeling that, for one day, the entire world had slowed down just enough for their family to catch its breath together. What we lost, in many ways, is that precious space around the holiday. The slow build, the quiet rituals, the shared patience. Waiting for a program to air at a specific time, instead of streaming it on demand. Saving up all year for one special toy, instead of scrolling through endless options. Knowing that if you wanted to capture a memory, you took a single photograph and hoped it turned out, rather than snapping dozens and never printing any of them. The scarcity of options made each choice, each object, each moment feel larger and more meaningful. But deep down, What we secretly miss is not just the style of decorations or the retro charm of tinsel and glass ornaments. We miss the feeling of being completely present, of waking up on Christmas morning and having nothing else tug at our attention except the people in that room, of listening to a story told by an older relative without checking a phone, of believing, even if just for a few childhood years, that someone kind and generous had crossed the world in one night just to visit your house. The good news is that while we cannot bring back the 1950s, we can borrow their best ideas. We can choose to decorate slowly, to tell stories, to sit together without screens for just a little while. We can make one gift feel like a treasure instead of making a pile feel like a blur. We can bake cookies and leave a plate out, even if the children in the house are old enough to know the truth, but young enough to still enjoy the game. We can dim the lights, turn on music, and let the tree be the brightest screen in the room. So as you watch these scenes of 1950s Christmas unfold, a child racing down the stairs, a mother adjusting a star on top of the tree, a father squinting through the viewfinder of a heavy camera, grandparents laughing at a joke that will never be recorded, listen closely to what your own heart remembers or longs for. Maybe it is a smell, a sound, a particular kind of quiet joy. Maybe it is a sense of being small in a big, safe world. Maybe it is simply the knowledge that for one day, the people you love are gathered in one place, doing nothing more complicated than being together. That, more than the toys or the tinsel, is what 1950s Christmas morning really felt like. And if you let it, a little piece of that feeling can still find its way into your own holidays today.